You go open my blind.
I'm going to check in with Nathan really fast. Part of the other things I do is our web stuff. I need to jump over to a web meeting for just a few minutes. Are you feeling good to go? All right. Holler if you need. I see we got a Vanessa and Jenny and Karen, everyone else. I mean, you're fantastic anyway, but I'll see you soon.
Vanessa, can you tell how many people we're waiting on?
I haven't been tracking it. Nathan, do you have an idea of how many fellows we're missing yet?
I think we're missing, oh, it looks like some people just joined us. Oh, people joined us. It looks like I think 1, 2, we might be missing one other person. Let me double check. Okay.
Okay, well, we're going to get started. It's 1 minute after 9 o'clock. And what I'd like to propose, because we have a guest speaker, is we have a new faculty member joining us this morning, Kathy Crafton, and I'd like to wait until after Kathy's presentation to do sort of your more formal introduction. Does that work?
Oh, sure. You bet, Karen. Yeah.
Great. Okay, then, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Kathy Gerby, who is a certified trainer for the Strengths-Based Leadership program, I guess is what you call it. And I'll let her give a little bit more of her background and turn it over to her. And Kathy, we have breakout rooms set up for slide 27 and slide 42 for small group discussions.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, take it away, Kathy.
Oh, good morning. I am very happy to be here. My name is Kathy Gerby, and I am both a certified Gallup strength coach and a licensed clinical social worker. I've had the privilege to work in the field for about 32 years now. I have a family member who experienced intellectual and developmental disabilities, my oldest brother. So I grew up in a home very much witnessing the strength and the advocacy and the patience of my parents. I had an internship in Chicago in 1985 where I was the third house parent to 7 developmentally delayed teenage boys. And in the 3 decades of work that I have done, I have the privilege of coming from a place that is very aligned with how Clifton Strengths views people. As a social worker, I come from a place of the strengths and talents that people bring, how we utilize what we have in us to support ourselves when we experience anxiety or depression or significant traumas and losses and all that goes along with those. I became a strengths coach 3 years ago now, from the point of view of My position with Crossroads Counseling and Training Services, I'm their Director of Clinical Services. And Crossroads is here in Fairbanks, and they provide services, both supportive living, rehabilitation, and some group home services for folks who are choosing that way of being supported in their world so that they can live as much of their own free choice and delight and growth as possible. And in doing that, I do training with the staff so that the staff can recognize what they bring. And in recognizing what they bring, they are able to see that in the folks they're building relationship with. So who is going to turn on the PowerPoint for me? Oh, thank you. So my privilege this morning is to talk a little bit about the strengths assessment that you have all completed. And just to explain a little bit about where it comes from, why leaders would want to use it, and to just give you a few thoughts about leadership.
Oops.
So, so Dawn Clifton, did I move that backwards or did you move that? I don't think we're at the first slide.
One second, let me hold.
I appreciate you organizing it. So
Oh, no worries.
Clifton Strengths was founded by Dr. Dawn Clifton, who is recognized as the father of positive psychology. Dawn passed away, I believe, in 2003 or 2004. So as a psychologist in the 60s and 70s, he started yelling, why don't we ask what's right with people? Why can't we look at what people do well? And so he started a line of research that looked at what was happening when things were going well for people. And in that regard, he started to measure attributes people bring, ways that people consistently get things done. He looked at how people influence situations, how they advocate and speak up for others. And he looked at what he called the human glue factors, the qualities that people bring that help build teams, reach out to others, help us to be more flexible. He looked at attributes that just naturally arose from people. The thing I appreciate about Clifton Strengths is that it's not a personality test. He looks at, in the testing he created, what we just naturally do well. So everyone here did this test, and oh, I see a screen coming up. And so let's go up to number 1. That's just perfect. So he felt that the real work about working with people from the perspective of psychology was maximizing the unique potential in every person, and that was the real work of being human. Next slide. And so he defined talent as your natural way of thinking, feeling, or behaving. It's just what you do. Next slide. He defined strength as the ability to consistently provide near perfect performance of a talent. And it's not about being a perfect person, but it's recognizing, oh, this is something that I do well. Like this is something I naturally bring, and I'm going to bring it now because I want to make a difference here, or I want to support this person, or I want to influence this decision, or I'm going to get this thing done. Next slide, please. So there are 34, they call them themes of talent. And this represented Gallup's best attempt at creating a common language or a classification of talents. You might have heard that same sort of language of like a common language classification for when you hear about diagnoses. Diagnoses are often utilized in like Medicaid, when we go for mental health support. And diagnoses are deficit-based. We look at what's wrong with people. We look at how people are struggling or what they can't do. And what Don Clifton wanted to look at was, what do you do? And what do you do well? Next slide, please. So in his research that he did, he was able to recognize back to 3-year-olds that these talents already existed in them. And these were the basis for the resiliency factors that supported us in our childhoods. And they were the basis for the factors that likely got us through so many of our traumatic experiences. Next slide, please. So, practice, practice, practice. When we have our talents and we are coming to recognize that, wow, I didn't know anyone considered what I just do as a talent. The fact that I am able to maybe just talk to people, or that when something changes, I'm just so naturally adaptable, I can shift it and help other people move too. Or that I have so much heart for how people feel, that it's like my superpowers, I can feel out what's happening in a room. But it's not always that people think, hey, that's really fantastic that you can do that. And so he encouraged us that once we caught the name and we claimed what that talent was, we practiced using it to the best of our ability. Next screen, please. So 23.7 million people worldwide have taken the Clifton Strengths Assessment. I actually think that that number is a little higher. It is used in schools. It is used in some universities as a screening to help young adults in transition to feel more confident with what they're bringing into their university career. Lots of employers use this to help people get the right seat on the bus. I think people who are equipped with this knowledge can make a difference at home, at work, and in their communities. Next screen, please. So there are 4 domains, meaning 4 grouping areas that these talents are divided into. Next screen, please. So the influencing themes, people who are dominant in these are people who can take charge. They speak up and they make sure other people are heard. So if you have communication or activator or woo or command, you're someone who works from one of these influencing themes. Next slide. Relationship building themes reflect people who naturally build strong relationships that hold a team together and can help a team grow to make it greater than the sum of its parts. We all need those people. So if you have a relationship building theme, those are people who lead with empathy, connectedness, positivity. They are the people who look at, how can I make this relationship with you better, stronger? What do I bring that is like a glue to teamwork? Next slide, please. So strategic thinking themes are just what it sounds like. They are thinking themes. These are people who absorb and analyze, and they inform decisions with the things they think about, they learn about, the context that they put things in that help us make better decisions. So if you're someone who comes from a place of strategic thinking, that makes you someone who puts a lot of work in that we can't always see. You're someone who may put hours trying to analyze a problem, solve a problem. You're someone who recognizes patterns. You show lots of your care and concern by the thinking energy that you put into it. Next slide, please. Executing themes. These are the people who make things happen and get things done. So if you are somebody with achiever, arranger, responsibility, belief, these themes come with a whole lot of energy. And these are the people who on a team really want to get things done. They may be the people with the checklists. They may be some of the people who are passionately talking about, I believe this matters and we're going to do it. There's a whole lot of energy that comes with people who are strong in these things that make things happen. Next slide, please. So, is this, sorry, I don't see numbers on my screen, and I'm thinking this is actually the presentation that I did last year. So I'm wondering if this is where you have a breakout space.
I think this is the presentation that Karen emailed me, so I'm not sure.
Oh,
but
that's all right. But is this the one, is this a breakout spot?
it can be, yeah.
So
we can skip this slide though. I can keep going if you're
no,
not quite ready.
that's okay. No, that's okay. So we have our 5 top talents. And these are 3 questions I would appreciate that we take into our breakout rooms. And if everyone can, with the people in the room, share what your top 5 talents are and how they resonated, how you felt about them. Which talent do you identify most with? And did you realize that the natural way of what you're doing was considered a talent, and that 24 million people worldwide recognize that talent too? So, Karen, how long is our breakout time for? You're muted, Karen.
It's really up to you.
So let's say 10 minutes so that everybody gets a few minutes to talk about it. So when you're ready, you can magically transport us.
All right, will do. And I'll set the timer for 10 minutes. Did it work out okay yesterday when I broadcasted the discussion questions?
Well, it came out a little goofy. Some of
Okay.
us some of us could see it on the chat, and some of us, it showed up like in a black banner on the top.
Okay, yeah, we did it both ways. I will just put you in the breakout rooms, hear your questions, make sure you have your talents with you and discuss. We'll get better at this over time, guys. And Kathy and Karen, I haven't assigned you to breakout rooms.
That's
Uh,
fine.
I didn't know if you wanted to be in this main room or if you'd like to be assigned to breakout rooms. I wanted to check in with you.
No, I'll stay here.
Okay.
So can I please, I'm going to stay here too, just for a second. The name of the gentleman who's running the program.
Nathan.
Nathan, thank you. Nathan, can you just scroll for me some of these?
Yes, so
Just so I know what's coming next.
so we have this one, and it looks like there's actually only 17 slides in this show. Let me check my email really quick
That's weird.
and see if there's another. Let's see.
Because all Holly did was take your slides that you sent to me, Kathy, and added whatever tag she had to add for accessibility. So she didn't change them. So I'm not sure whether we have the right.
That's quite all right. I have a printout and sitting here with me so I can cover some of it. I just feel a little badly that it's a less visual and more talking. So I just wanted to make sure that if you had the other presentation, that's fine. If not, I'm just going to make this work as is.
I'm going to try to find it.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through my email too to find that email that Karen sent me to make sure that I'm pretty sure I just downloaded it from that email and just kept it on my laptop, but maybe I grabbed the wrong one from last year because I've been organizing all of our archive stuff, so definitely could have happened, but let me just see.
Here, it was from Holly on Wednesday, September 8th.
Okay.
I can forward this to you again.
Okay, yeah, yes, please, thank you. September 8th from Holly.
And you're picking it up on the Alaska Lend?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Do you see it?
Still refreshing, one sec.
Oh, I see, there it is. Slide 27. is reflect on a work story. Did it show up?
Not yet. And you said it's from
Okay.
September 8th, though?
Yeah, or I can share my screen and do
Okay,
it that way. Just remind me, how do I get rid of that side panel thing?
Let me just see if I can find it real quick. I'm confused at how they got mixed up. Let me refresh my email one more time.
And Kathy, so just so you know, with the breakout rooms, I did 6 breakout rooms. They have between like 4 or 5 people in each of the breakout rooms, 1 faculty member at least, and then the rest with fellows. So
Okay.
just so you know how the setup was there, since that wasn't something that we talked about ahead of time. I figured you might want to know as the facilitator and leader of this discussion.
I appreciate it.
Did you find it, Nathan? Okay, here's the deal. Can somebody just tell me, how do I get rid of that side panel so that it's just the full screen, and I will share the PowerPoint and move it forward?
You can either hit F5 and that'll make it a full screen. Did that work?
Yep.
All righty.
So
Um,
Karen, if you can go to slide 24.
Yeah, let me see what I did here. Ugh. How do I get out of this?
Escape.
Okay, so do I have screen sharing?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so. And then F5, did you say?
Yep.
And what number, Kathy?
24, I think. Yep. So if you're all right with this, I'm just going to ask for some feedback from people now. And I'm not going to break out at 27. And I will,
Okay, I'm not, somehow it's, you don't see it, do you?
We're
Yes.
seeing the not the big screen share view, but the one where it's got the little guys on the one side. The
so if you
thumbnails.
click on slideshow and click start up at the top on the red after insert, draw, yep, click slideshow and hit play from current slide. That'll do it.
Does that work?
Yes. So Karen, would you say it would be better to minimize that for a minute, if you can, or if you can't say so, and we just do a little bit of feedback, what people's experiences were, and then come back to this?
Okay, I don't know how to minimize it, to be honest with you.
Then, okay, so then is it
Oh,
odd to, oh,
Oh, what did I just do?
You stop screen share.
Oh, Jesus.
It's okay. This is good. We
it
can.
is perfect.
Then when they come back in just a minute, I was going to let them know they have a minute left. When they come back, they can see each other. And then Karen,
Yep.
when Kathy gives you the indication, you can screen share again. And it should be just right.
Okay.
Yes, you did it perfectly, Karen. Way to go.
My mistake.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the room, so we'll start getting people back. I just appreciate the positivity of this group and this set of talks. You know, to be reminded of your strengths is really refreshing. And I don't know about everybody else, but I feel like I could use some refreshment right about now. So I really appreciate having this talk right now. And Kathy, the way you deliver it is solid. It's empowering. So
I
thank
appreciate
you.
that.
I got sucked in by the blue leave the breakout room button accidentally. I didn't mean to leave you so fast, Sarah and Garrett.
No worries.
Well, welcome back to everybody on my screen. So I was wondering if there were folks out there with woo or communication or connectedness or whatever talent you're bringing today, who could share a little bit about what that felt like and some of the reflections on the questions. Feel free to just unmute and talk.
I think our group definitely had a wide range of strengths that we were talking about, and the ones that we identified the most with were almost consistently the first strength that they matched us with. Some people didn't, but some people did. And we were talking about how interesting it is that you said that it comes, like, you can see it at age 3, which is amazing. And you know, if you can know that about children that you have or children that you work with and foster those things from an early age, that can be so beneficial to them.
I appreciate that, Crystal. There are simpler strengths tests called Quest Finders for kids and strengths-based parenting that I use in my clinical work with people. So our talents are neither positive or negative, they're neutral. And so when we can remove like the judgment or the shame or the criticism and recognize, oh, that's how you naturally go through the world, it allows us actually to be closer to people as opposed to far apart when we're going, why can't that person just stop explaining? When someone with communication, the way they make it and sort their world is by talking outwards with people about it. So in the right place, you really want someone who is well-spoken, who's talking, who is in that place of advocating. So I appreciate very much what you said and how it can be applied. Other feedback today.
Our group kind of touched on that, where we all had different strengths, and we were talking about how that helps build a good team. So how we could even see in our small group how we might complement each other.
That's excellent. So I haven't seen a grid. Does anyone have a top 5 that they don't feel like fits them?
I said, I think there's a COVID me and a not COVID me. No, truly. And I think my top 5 reflect me well in COVID. But I think outside of COVID, I think they would have been different. I think there would have been some different ones. Just because I'm not as focused on certain things. My life has changed very dramatically. Being diagnosed with ADHD, becoming a stay-at-home mom, having my career not be my focus and having my family be my focus, learning a lot, reading a lot with new diagnoses, and just getting more involved in my personal life than I guess I've ever been. So I've gone inward, and I'm typically sort of extroverted and that kind of thing. So I think my, yeah, I thought it was interesting. I don't think of, I don't know that they would be consistent outside. I don't know if they would have been this outside of COVID, the talents that showed up. Because of the way I answered the questions, I was thinking about that.
Oh, Caitlin, I appreciate that. Thank you. Certainly, one of the research things that Dr. Clifton did was if people retake the test, do the talents change? And what he found was that generally they stayed pretty similar. And that if someone had experienced, oh my goodness, like we all have, something that was traumatic, something that was life impacting, like COVID, that there was a chance that there may be some change within that top 10, that other strengths would move up and others would become a little less. So you called it right on. That totally aligns with the research from 25 years ago. So I appreciate that self-reflection you had and that you shared with us. Thank you. Anyone else before we start just taking a little bit of a look at, hey, Rick.
I communicate.
I'm a communicator.
So people always tell me you need to write it in an email.
People always tell me you need to write it in an email.
But communicate.
But that's not how I communicate.
But I don't know how to get that across to people.
I don't know how to get that across to people.
Because it's harder for me to communicate that me saying what
An email is harder for me to communicate than
saying outward.
Than saying outward.
So is that your number one, communication?
Yeah.
Having had the privilege to sit with you and other things, I am not surprised by that, Rick. Your passionate expression is what influences people, situations. It is probably what puts you out in front, is the eloquent, passionate way that you speak. And so I appreciate your saying that it's hard, that people want you to email, because it's like, does it feel like a disconnect for you?
Yeah, a big disconnect.
A big disconnect.
So it's not a real thing, but it's almost like it's a strengths violation. It's like somebody wants you to take the humanity out of what you do and what you naturally do so well.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage you to make the most of when you can communicate. And that if someone wants an email response, maybe consider your email responses. I'd really like a conversation with you, because this is so important. Peer power is so important. People's needs, people's feelings, connection in the time of COVID is so important. And how you do that is through communicating. I appreciate your input. Thanks so much, Rick. So Karen, it's that big moment. If you could screen share, you can do it.
Does that work?
Nice. So why did the Wonderful Len program ask you to do this test? Because Blend is about creating connection. It's about creating informed, compassionate, supportive leadership. And strengths-based leadership starts from when a person works from his or her talents towards their objectives. Next slide, please, Karen. So in being a leader, the real work is about developing yourself first, your confidence and what you bring with your talent. Next slide, please. So what if you looked at what is right about me? Which kind of seems a little bit out of the norm, because we're always saying what's right about everybody else. And leadership, and I believe this too, leadership is about looking at yourself first. Next slide, please. So we're going to come back to this as a breakout. We're not going to do it yet. So please think about a work-related story at a time that you were able to use one of these talents in a way that you thought really helped the situation. So my example comes from my clinical work, and it was in family therapy. So I had a client, teenage girl, who was in the custody of the state, who got adopted. And that's just like a huge hooray, because adopting our teens in foster care is a sadly low number. And so this mom and dad and their daughter were kind of banging heads, which is normal in adolescence. And this young girl had we all experience trauma. It's part of being human. She had experienced so much trauma in her young 13 years. I had mom and dad and daughter each do a strengths assessment to see where they came from and how they got to all of this head banging. Because I didn't want to have it come from a place of blame or shame or judgment that she behaved this way because of things that happened a long time ago. While they may influence it, like the things that have happened to us, in a moment when we come from what we do well and how we come to understand each other can change how a meeting goes, how a family therapy session goes. It can take the shame and the blame and the judgment off, because we have more understanding how each other comes through the world. So if you can think about it, please, while we keep moving forward, a story that you can share in a breakout session, I'd appreciate it. Next slide, please, Karen. So strengths-based leadership happens when a person starts to work from his or her talents, develops their own self-trust in those talents. They have compassion for themselves when maybe the talent wasn't used the best way it could have been in that moment. And the confidence to know you have something unique that you're bringing. Nobody else has it like you do. And so this is where strength-based leadership happens. Next slide, please.
Oops.
It's okay. So making those changes, recognizing what's in us. What do we want to bring? How do we want to bring it? That becomes our own personal professional development. Next slide, please. So why does professional development even matter? So I think professional development matters to me because I consider what I do a privilege. I think that seeing people for who they are and what they bring sees and validates a person for the contributions they have, for what they can bring to the challenges they may experience. And in some ways, it makes us all equal, or it can, because we each have something unique to bring. Next screen, please. So, how do we know that what we're bringing is what we want to bring? And so Gallup calls this, what are balconies and what are basements? Next screen, please. So a balcony, it means that we are operating from a really positive part of our theme. So it's when we are at our best. That's when we are operating in our balcony. We can like see where we're going. We have strength, we have confidence. That's our balcony. And that's what Gallup thought, that you are at a place of you have grown your talent to a strength when you can consistently operate in your balcony. Next screen, please. So adaptability. Someone who is strong in adaptability can just, it's like they can adjust on the fly. They can change direction midstream when it's called for, and they can help others manage that change too. And it's like it floats with such ease. And these are the people that when something starts to bump and people aren't really sure what's happening because it wasn't what they expected, people with adaptability are able to bring that human relationship glue and confidence to, oh, I think this is how it is. And they help us manage change. That's adaptability in its balcony. Next screen, please. So how do you feel when you're operating from the best of your strength when you are in your balcony? Because that's one of the clues to knowing, when am I at my best and when am I not? Because I didn't even realize that somebody could think what I did was like a real talent and that it can change, impact, influence what's happening. So when you go and you look at your story that you're going to share in a breakout room, think about how did that feel? Because how you feel matters, and how you feel is an indicator to where you are in your balcony or your basement. Next screen, please. So when we're in our basement, we are not using our strength for the best that we can bring it. So one of my number 3 is input. Input for me is, I am a collector of stories. I have so much regard for people's personal stories. I consider myself a detective. I am looking for the superpower in each human. And it is such a gift to hear those. I do lots of reading. And it's like I collect things that might be helpful to somebody. And so one of the hallmarks, if you can remember in school, when the teacher asked a question, someone strong with input would have been the person going, oh, pick me. I know. So there were moments that I was one of those people because input actively wants to share what they know, an answer or something in that moment. So input for me, when I am in my balcony, I am sharing relevant stories that are connected to what we're doing and how we are solving or working through something. That's when my input is in its balcony. My input is in the basement. I'm the youngest of 5. And sometimes I call it when my youngest child comes out, when my input is a joke that sort of derails the entire conversation somewhere else. Because I have so much stuff that I've collected in my head, I could probably just keep connecting further and further out. I think that's what people call rabbit holes. Like they start moving down the rabbit hole with things that are so interesting to them, and we get really animated and excited, or we're really down and we're sick of this. So we're sick of somebody imposing this on me, and then they impose this on me. You get a lot of friends when you bring up something negative, and everyone wants to throw negative stories on it. So for me, when I am offering things that aren't relevant or helpful in that moment, or I've taken it down like a negative, complaining, not constructive, like problem solving or trying to hear someone, but just complaining, my input is in the basement. Next slide, please. So back to my adaptability. So for people who are strong with this human connection theme, people can become so go with the flow that they don't get done what they need or want to do in their day. They pivot so well for everyone all of the time that they can kind of feel directionless or lost, or they may have done so many things in a day and they've jumped out to help people and change things and offered to do more, that they have done all of this work and none of it was theirs. And that can be what adaptability can look like in that basement. Next screen, please. So if we can take 8 minutes, what time am I up? Balconies and basements, do these matter to you as a leader in Lent? Why or why not? So Vanessa, can you send us out there for 8 minutes, please?
Will do.
Thank you.
Julie, do you remember what group you were part of last time? Who you were with? Oh, sorry, there she goes. Kelly, would you like to be put into a group? I haven't moved you into one yet.
Sure, I was in the car earlier, so I wasn't in the first group.
Okay, let me find us.
I can listen, but it's hard to do anything else when you're driving.
Yeah, no, and unsafe, right? Let me go ahead and put you in a group. I'm just trying to make sure I have equal numbers. So here we go. Off you go.
And Kathy, just FYI, Garrett sent me a direct message. He wanted to connect with you about this presentation, and I dropped your email in the chat for him, so you might get an email from him later today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Karen, how's this working for you?
It's working great. I see Julie is still hanging out there.
Oh, I had computer issues. I'm trying to work on it. Sorry.
Got it.
And I just had one really quick question, Vanessa, this is a technology point that we learned last year. Do we want to pause the recording while we're on breakout, just so we don't have to clip it out when we go to post things? Or we discovered that like we'd have these big silent spots or these weird spots where we're like, what'd you do Thursday? You know?
Yeah, that's a really
So-
good point. And so Nathan, one thing that you can do, because I think your recording is to hit pause.
Well, thank you, everyone, for the discussions you've had. Is there sharing in regards to balcony that anyone would like to share with us today?
One thing that was brought up that I really liked was that it wasn't necessarily like balcony is absolute good and basement is absolute bad, but also just kind of looking at in the basement as a skill that someone is still developing or developing to a particular situation where perhaps you would have used that talent differently in a different situation.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Other feedback?
I'll speak for my group. We talked about ourselves, having the difficulty of being in the basement and our differences that we have and things that causes us to be in the basement and how we bring ourselves out of the basement to the balcony. And we also discussed how it affects others, our family members, and when they have problems like ADD or ADHD, and they're in the basement, and how do we, pull them out and support them when they're so close to you and you're trying to fix the problem. And it's just a battle back and forth. So Caitlin was wonderful and was giving me some advice on how to help my daughter in that situation and pull her out of the basement and to look at the cup half full, which I'm very positive, and she's the opposite. So we discussed on different things of how, that not only our family members, but our students as well can help out.
Well, that sounds like a very powerful and dynamic discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. It was.
Anyone else?
I'd like to say for myself, I'm having computer issues, but for my basement, I find that, one of my strengths is empathy and intellection. And when I'm at work, if others aren't quite there with that empathy, when I'm in my basement, I kind of back down, and I won't sometimes I won't engage with them. So I don't know how to explain it, but it's almost like a hindrance to me. It's like, how can you not understand this? And I'm trying to get that across, but sometimes I can't get there. And that's probably because of maybe the way I'm communicating, which with them because of their strengths. So I think it'll help me work on that actually.
I really appreciate that, Julie, particularly that you shared about empathy. I think that so many of us in the human services field may have empathy in our top 5 or our top 10 because caring so deeply can motivate us. And I appreciate your saying that maybe when your empathy isn't in that place that feels real good in you, that you know how to recognize it and you have a sense of knowing what you may need to do.
What I'm trying to say, I'm sorry, is that I'm so empathetic when I feel others aren't, and I can't communicate to them to make them see, hey, look at it this way. It's very frustrating for me. So then I will go into my introvert self, I will I get frustrated because I can't impart that to others, like look at it this way, and you can do that sometimes, but sometimes if that's say not a strength, which I realized through this little assessment we did of ourselves. So I think I can develop my communication in a way a little bit better to appeal to their strengths, to maybe help them see where I'm coming from. And that's where the frustration is, because I'm so empathetic. And it hurts me when like being in mental health and I hear I'll have RNs come past me to try and break up a conversation, like they feel I'm talking too long to the client or the patient. And I'm like, that's very frustrating. But you're actually trying to find that strength of someone to build them up. And so that's a point of frustration. But thanks, sorry.
Oh, no, thank you for sharing that. Because the other thing you just showed is how you take another strength to leverage, which means to support yourself, to move it in another direction. So when my empathy may be kind of feeling a little bit, I'm leveraging with my communication. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Karen, can you please share your screen again?
Yes. I think it's there.
Okay, so the next slide, please. So being a leader is about how you carry yourself, how you care for yourself in a moment, and the talent that you bring to that moment, or how Julie kindly demonstrated for us the next talent you choose to bring for yourself in that moment. Next screen, please. So just some thoughts. When you lead from adaptability, when the pressure is on, you support hesitant others in ways to collect themselves and support them to take control of their inner situation. You know that it's in the balcony. Adaptability is about more than simply, going with the flow, rolling with the punches. Adaptability is about calmly, intelligently, and readily responding to the circumstances right in front of us. Next screen, please. Connectedness. When you lead from connectedness, you have a philosophy of life that compels you to move beyond your own self-interest and the interests of your immediate constituency or sphere of influence. And you see broader implications for the community and the world. When you lead from connectedness, you can explore ways to communicate the connections you see to others and how our connectedness can matter in a specific moment. Next slide, please. So when you lead from empathy, you're sensitive to the feelings of others. You readily gauge or you're aware of the emotional tone of a room. So you use your talents to forge a bridge of understanding and mutual support. Empathy is so important during trying times because that's where it demonstrates your concern and can build loyalty on teams. Next screen, please. So when you lead from developer, folks here, it's helpful to make a list of the people you've helped learn and grow. Look at that list often and remind yourself of the impact that you have had on the people and on the world around you. Write what you would consider to be each person's strengths and then ask them about it. Look for their input and help them grow. What do they want to bring to a meeting, to a discussion? How do they bring it in a way that maximizes their talent? Next slide, please. So, thinking and applying talents. Consider where you're looking at things from. Right here and right now, Or is it something bigger, something that'll carry on for a while? Next screen, please. So Karen, I'm going to have you just fast forward because we were going to let a couple of these go. So you can move from this one and this one and this one and this one and this one. Next one. Okay, so what's the context for what we bring our talents to? So in understanding and learning about the LEN program, and as a strengths coach and a therapist, I thought relationship was the most important thing. Next slide, please. So relationship as a leader starts with ourselves. And how we bring our unique talent. So why does compassion matter in leadership? How does compassion matter in our talents? So we can't heal the world today, but we can begin with a voice of compassion, a heart of love, and an act of kindness. Next slide. Compassion matters because if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion with yourself. So as a leader, when I am developing my talents, when I am figuring out when I am frustrated and I am in the basement on something, what would I extend to someone else? And as a leader, how do I lead by example? By sending that to myself first. Next slide, please.
Oops.
So compassion is an infinite way of thinking, teaching, and aiming your strengths to lead. Infinite means that when I give myself compassion in a moment, I create space to see and hear and think about the people around me. Compassion builds bridges within myself so that I can build them with others. Next slide, please. Compassion in action. That's when you are aligning your talents and feeling your positive feelings of when you are working from what you do well. Compassion is in action is being able to look anywhere in the situation you're in and recognize the talents of others and how you hold yourself in your talent. So earlier, and we won't go back to the screen, I had that question about, can you think of a work situation or a situation with a provider or a family member where you really felt like, I brought the best of me to that? And if you can name what talent or talents you brought with you. So if we can take 5 minutes, Vanessa, out in those rooms to share a brief story about when your talent was used at your best in a work, professional, or family situation.
Yep, all rooms are open now.
Thank you.
I think I need to be sent to my room. Oh, there it is.
Can you pause the recording, Nathan? Karen, I was not going to do any feedback. I was just going to well, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for sharing the stories of where you did well. Karen, if you can pull up the last few slides, thank you. So the next slide, please. So our key learnings from the last hour. Your talents are unique to you. They came with you, and there is no one to thank for them except you. So as a leader, thank you for bringing your talents with you. Next slide. Balconies and basements. How do I know, and do these matter? Next slide. Infinite and finite thinking. How do I bring perspective, inclusion, and compassion to the moment that I am in? Next slide. As a leader, put your own mask on first. Focus on your talents and your leadership so that you can bring to a situation the best of you, which will support you to see the best in others. Next slide. Begin with what you naturally do well, your talents, because this feels really good. Next slide. Align with the best of yourself and your talents and leverage this alignment of feeling really good in your talents. And when something feels like, consider another talent to support where you're going. Next slide, please. So thank you for modeling, bringing your talents forward today and recognizing that every human being has unique talents just like you. Please, in the things you do, seek those natural ways of what people bring. Seek those out and talk about them and notice them, because we all want to be seen and heard for the gift of who we are. So Karen, that's it for the slide. Now we were going to put up the grid so that each person on the screen could share their top 5. And we're going to make a large grid that shows the distribution. So maybe we can start in the list. Anna, can you please read your top 5 in order?
Excuse me. So mine are deliberative, then analytical, input, intellectual, intellection, and learner.
Input, intellection, and learner. Excellent. Bailey.
I have activator, developer, communication, woo, includer.
Caitlin.
I have input.
Far right,
All the
strategic
way
thinking.
strategic thinking. I know I almost should, I'm like looking for myself. So input, yep. And then can I just, do I have to do an order? Because then learner, because learner is just a couple over, and strategic. I'm real heavy clearly in strategic thinking. Okay. And then empathy and belief. So empathy is in relationship building. Yeah. And then belief is in executing, third one.
Crystal.
My first one is individualization and relationship building. My second one is deliberative.
Executing.
My third one is relator.
Relationship building.
My fourth is input. And my fifth is intellection.
Christine.
Good morning. I have achiever. Responsibility. Woo, which I was excited about, and communication.
Influencing.
So input, so achiever, input, responsibility, woo, and so I think input was okay.
Garrett.
My top 5 are includer, communication, positivity, belief, and woo.
Thank you. Jacqueline.
Hi, my first one is intellection.
Far right thinking, yeah.
And then developer. Learner. Empathy. And input.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Achiever, belief, input, learner, discipline,
Executing. Thank you. Julie. Julie? Julie's had a little audio challenges, so we'll, oh, good.
I forgot to unmute. Achiever, belief, developer, empathy, and intellection.
Thank you. Kara.
Okay, mine is strategic, achiever, ideation, connectedness, I think you
Thank
hit
you.
empathy.
Empathy,
Instead of,
yeah.
and the last one is learner.
Thank you. Caitlin.
Okay, so mine are basically all to the far right. I'll just let you scroll over. Okay, first is input. Second is learner. Third is intellection. Fourth is analytical. And 5 is back to the left in responsibility.
It's an executing.
It's an
themes.
execution, yeah.
Excellent. Catherine.
Mine are also on the right. Analytical, individualization, context, relator, and learner.
Fabulous. Madeline.
Mine are in the very first and very last columns. I have my number 1 is discipline. Number 2 is learner. Number 3 is achiever. Number 4 is focus. And number 5 is input. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Maria.
My first 3 are under strategic thinking, which is input, intellection, and learner. And then after that, the 4th is communication. And the last one is relator.
You wanted to say realtor, didn't you?
Oh.
Yes, it's relator. So many people look at that and say realtor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maria. Meredith.
Okay, my first one is under executing. It's restorative. My second one is under strategic thinking, learner. And the rest are in relationship building. Third, empathy. Fourth, includer. And 5th, harmony.
Excellent. Rick.
So, my first one is communicator.
My first one is communicator.
My second is belief. Yeah.
Belief. My second one is belief.
My third is
My third one is arranger.
my fourth one is significant.
My fourth one is significance.
And my fifth one is achiever.
And my fifth one is achiever.
Excellent. Thank you. Rose. Oh, Rose, you're already in there. I apologize. Sarah.
Sorry, Kathy, could we go back for a second? I was a little slow in supporting and I'm missing one of yours, Rick. I heard achiever, belief.
Significance.
Significance. I have significance, communication, and I feel like I'm missing one. I'm so sorry.
So I have communicator.
I have communication.
Belief.
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 Which one?
Arranger.
Arranger, that's the one. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And Rose, we got yours. You had emailed me earlier, yours, and I put those in there. But if you want to share out what yours are, that's okay too.
I don't know.
command, adaptability, empathy, includer, input.
Did you say command, Rose?
Yeah.
So we just
no,
need
wait,
to
that might have been
change.
communication. My bad.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Rose. Sarah.
Okay, so my first one is input. And then I have responsibility. And then ideation. And then adaptability. And my last one is connectedness.
Again, I missed one. I apologize. I have focus, adaptability, connectedness, input.
Ideation, but focus is not, it's responsibility.
It's responsibility. Oh, jeepers. Okay, yep.
You got that right, Vanessa.
I got the X right. I read wrong.
Oh.
Oh boy.
And Shannon.
Hello. Mine are achiever, harmony, arranger, includer, and learner.
Excellent. And saving the best to now, Sherry.
Okay, mine are learner, woo, positivity, includer, and achiever. Thank you.
Wow, this is a really exciting looking Lend cohort. Oh my goodness. So I really appreciate the privilege of sitting with this cohort and with this absolutely wonderful faculty that's going to introduce you and teach you and support you through just an incredible process. So I encourage you to value yourselves and to be proud of who you are and to bring all of yourself with you as you speak your truth in this process. So thank you, Karen, and everyone for the opportunity to be with Lend again. It's nice to see you all.
So thank you so much, Kathy. That was wonderful. And just we're just running just a little late, but that's okay. We'll talk about this later, but you are going to pick one of your talents. And you're going to turn that into a goal as to how you can strengthen that talent. That will be part of your leadership plan, and Jenny will talk about that after the break. So let's take 15 minutes. And if we have to carve into lunch a little bit, we'll have to do that. So see you back in 15 minutes. Thank you so much, Kathy. Good to see you again.
Kathy, can I ask you a question before you go on break? Is that okay? I'm just curious.
Yeah, whoever just like grabbed it, I was about to hit leave. Your timing's amazing.
I'm trying to wait for Karen to let us go. I'm curious because you know a lot more about this. I've never really. My husband did StrengthsFinder for his company a couple of years ago, but anyhow, I've never done it. I'm curious. We were missing categories. There's nobody in certain categories. I was noticing that in the cohort. What are your thoughts? I mean, like, it looked decently balanced. I felt like it looked like there's more in strategic thinking, but I just was curious about that and group dynamics and stuff like that. Like I saw nobody was in command, nobody was in certain things. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. So based on the research, you have a lot in strategic thinking and relationship building.
I noticed that.
And so what jumped out for me is that there's some pretty rare themes statistically across the 24, 25 million people who have done that. Influencing themes as a group are very rare. Like the percentages is less than 10% of that large number of people who have completed the assessment will have an influencing theme in their top 5. Probably the least, actually it is the least statistically, is significance, self-assurance, command, and woo. So to have Rick who has significance, that's a very rare theme. Woo is the theme that people wish they had more of, and communication. And so what I have learned in the last 4 years is that our talents can look differently based on the situation that we're in. So the themes talk about what you bring to something and how you impact your world. So people who impact it through influence are a far smaller part of the population. But that doesn't mean the other themes don't influence as well. People influence by building a relationship. People influence by getting things done. People influence by the thoughts they bring, by the analysis they do, by the context or the boundaries that they set in their thinking. So it's sort of like the spice you have is the perfect spice for the soup or the stew. And it is about adding just the right amount of your own salt or pepper or spicy spices in. Gallup has never seen it as you have to have so many across the domains to be balanced and to be okay. What you have and who has arrived are the right people in the right mix to be there. It might just take a little bit of bumping about to figure out how we can connect, how we can meet in a place that supports all of our talents. So I appreciate your question. Did that answer it, or are you looking for
It sort
something
of did.
else?
So what is it common then? It sounds like it's sort of common to have more people in strategic thinking area, or like, is that usually, our category, or hard to say?
So I
just was curious.
So based on this cohort, it made sense to me. There were lots of people with learner because Lend would attract people who just wanted to learn and know and bring more. You have lots of people who likely are driven by something very personal and very powerful, who bring lots of thought with it. So strategic thinking makes sense to me. I think you had, I didn't count the X's, but you have lots of people in relationship building. And so people who want to help people grow, adapt, all of those things, that makes lots of sense to me. Woo and communication made total sense because those are the people who naturally will step forward to influence and advocate for the needs of others. And thank goodness for all the people who bring it home and get things done. For the restorative people who are solving problems, for the people with deliberative who are assessing risk in this matrix in their mind of all the different ways that things can go and what could be the risk in each pathway. People who bring responsibility, which is like psychological ownership of a process, of a situation. They are so wholly invested in something being successful. And achievers, the people who make the lists, check it off and get it all done. It feels good that it's all represented so clearly. Someone had focus. Focus is a very rare one. along with significance and woo, just in the general population. So I'm really excited for whoever brings focus, how that shows up in their world.
Thank you. I was just curious because I think it's interesting as a group, right? Like
Oh,
seeing the different
yeah.
strengths, like noticing trends and kind of curious about that. So cool. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's all right. You got good timing. Thanks so much. Bye.
Karen, can you remind me of our return time? So I can put it on the break slide?
Well, gee, I don't know whether you want to do it from now or whether you want to do it from. It was about 20 of, and so 15 minutes would have put us about 5 of.
Okay.
10:55, I think.
All right, 10:55. We'll return
Right.
from break then.
So are most people back? It's hard to tell whether they're actually here or not. Yeah, if you can turn your cameras on, that really would be helpful. Okay, it looks like we have most people back. And before we launch into a description of the program components, I wanted to say we are lucky this year. We have 2 nursing faculty. And you met Sarah yesterday, and today we have Kathy Crafton joining us. And so Kathy, I'm going to have you do the introduction that everybody did yesterday. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're located, and your favorite food.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kathleen Crafton, and I am located here in Anchorage. I have been a nurse for a very long time, like over 35 years. I went to nursing school right out of high school, and was pretty much worked full time most of that time. I took about 5 years off and took my family in, sailing around the world. So that was a big change in my life, which was awesome. But I currently work in Anchorage at the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit at Providence Hospital. And I have a daughter, which some of you have already know. Her name is Jenna, and she was a Nun Fellow last year. And it was really fun watching her go through this program. And so now I'm really fortunate to be an adjunct faculty member to help in this process. It's exciting for me. I'm thrilled to be here, and I was really sorry that I had to work yesterday. I wasn't able to be here, and that test was exciting this morning. I wish I had a copy and I would have been able to take it. It was fun taking it last year with Jenna, but I did it more with her than on my own. But I'm really excited to be with you guys this year. That's all I have.
How about your favorite food?
Oh, my favorite food. That's right. Jenna did tell me that. Golly, I guess it would be ice cream.
Very good. Thank you and welcome.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Jenny.
Kathy, thanks for that introduction. So happy to have you with us. So in the next few minutes in our time together, I'm interested in sharing just a romp through some of the program components. I'm sure you all will think back to the time of your interview where the interview team, one person would do an overview of the program. And really today, what we'll do is the same, but drill down a little bit more into some detail and talk about how you'll be working with your faculty mentor to develop your LEND leadership plan. Think roadmap, if you will. So today, I want to review the components, as I've already said. I would really delight if you'd be thinking about, and I'm sure you already have, what your priorities are for your LEND experience, and then to really begin to establish some goals for that. We also want to spend a little time talking about how to develop that leadership. So as you all know, in terms of our kind of official instructional activities, certainly we're part of that yesterday and today. And then in our regular Friday seminars, our 3 hours together, really those, and when Meredith's question yesterday, I'm thinking about that as I'm speaking, where she was wanting to know where we're logging these hours. You will get an expert orientation to that this afternoon when Holly goes over the e-portfolio. But in terms of seminar, really a classic seminar might be on, well, it will be on a specific topic. There's typically a expert, a content expert, subject matter expert that may offer a presentation. And following that presentation, there may be some active learning activity. Maybe there's a case study and we'll break into breakout rooms to discuss the case study. Maybe indeed there, as Ken mentioned yesterday, there might be a parent panel where families discuss their lived experience. If I can be so bold, Kelly, I'll use special ed law as an example. I think at one point you offered a presentation about not only the history, but the current law, and then went on to share with us the IEP process. And then that was followed up with a parent panel. So that's kind of a sampling of the kinds of activities that we'll be doing in seminar. Seminar as well, just in terms of how you'll be collecting your hours. Some weeks in seminar, there's usually there's always a bit of preparation. Some seminars more than another. The time that you spend in preparing for seminar are certainly hours that we will be asking you to report. So clinical, and the next two I'll be talking about are clinical and field. First, clinical. And I do have a need. I am so proud of all of us. Here we are. We've made it here for a second day. And I believe, I heard some of you say it during the discussion, we're in really uncertain times. And I hope that we offer ourselves a lot of credit for just keeping moving forward, as well as offering yourself self-compassion. I'm not going to try and integrate anything other than what Ken indicated yesterday. And that is, and Karen too, I think you talked about how we would certainly be following UAA's guidelines related to COVID. To that end, in some of the clinical suggestions for examples I have here, it's probably just important to make a note that your vaccination status may affect what opportunities would be available to you. Nothing more than that. Just be aware that depending on settings, there may be different guidelines, and that, again, your vaccination status could be an influencer. In terms of clinical experiences, I like to think of that as either observing or job shadowing with a provider, a clinician who's offering direct services. And really the whole goal of this, if you want to think of it broadly, is what do families experience as they're navigating through the current healthcare systems and really being the advocate for their child that's receiving services. As well, clinical experiences offer you an opportunity to see firsthand how interdisciplinary teams work in the delivery of services. So an example may be, and some of you in the audience know certainly about this, you may be observing a therapy session with an occupational therapist, or perhaps a speech language pathologist. In terms of the more traditional in a clinic, in a four-walled clinic, we certainly have neurodevelopmental clinics where fellows have been able to observe. Local providers, certainly I've mentioned our medical faculty is from Providence Medical Group, and we mentioned the clinic at South Central Foundation. And then there are neurodevelopmental outreach clinics that are administered through the section of Women's, Children's, and Family Health. So that's certainly an opportunity for, and I want to be really clear, when I said uncertainty, think back to Kathy's words about adaptability as well. Most of these services I can't offer you a proportion have certainly within the last 18 months moved to a telehealth delivery venue. Some have returned to traditional. I truly don't have up-to-date information, and that information is dynamic, if you will.
I do, if it helps. SCF is seeing people in person. They're giving you the choice.
Oh, they're giving you a
in-person or Zoom.
choice. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, it's been able to work. I mean, obviously masked. They have allowed parents to go back. Since I have twins, I tend to have my daughter go back with the provider, and I wait with my other daughter outside. Yeah, no, SCF, it's very much your choice as to whether, obviously symptom free, that kind of thing. But yep.
and of course, before we would have up-to-date information when you would be exploring what clinic you might want to go to. Caitlin, for example, this summer when I talked with Jules, who's the program or who's the clinic manager there, she, by the way, is one of our Lend alumni. I'm always clucking like a proud mother hen about the leadership roles that our alumni members have become a part of. But that's kind of, they transitioned over the summer back to seeing folks in person, and it had been a virtual previously. Karen, did you raise your hand?
The only issue, I raised my hand just to say that the only issue is that they may or may not allow observers. I know that Providence was seeing kids, Dr. Fauci was seeing kids face to face, but Providence did not allow observers, and that's the problem. Although I do know that there's going to be at least 2 virtual outreach clinics. And so when I have those dates solidified with the state, we'll get that out to you guys. Last year, what we were able to do was historically, a fellow spent sort of the whole day at that clinic. Last year, because of COVID and limited opportunities, we were able to have one fellow observe, one patient, and then another fellow observe the next patient. So that's the caveat, is observers.
Yeah.
May I add something about the vaccines?
I couldn't catch what you said, Kelly.
May I add something about the vaccines?
Well, of course.
It isn't just about your COVID vaccine. You have to, like, for example, when I went to observe the neurodevelopmental clinic at Providence, I had to produce all of my vaccination records, and I couldn't come up with those. So I had to get a titer, and that took some time. And it ended up being a lot cheaper for me to get that through the UAA Healthcare Student Clinic instead of paying for it through my insurance. So something to think about if you're wanting to do those in-person visits and they're allowed, you'll need all of your shot immunization records.
So a whole nother arena of discussion related to vaccination. And quite candidly, I'm happy you brought that up, because my reference related to vaccination, while globally, was specific to COVID. Okay, we're going to move on then and talk a little bit about field experiences. And how I think about field experiences is really where you're having an opportunity with an organization in the field, in the community. And the whole idea of field experiences is really to offer a sense of systems change and how it happens. If you remember Rick's presentation yesterday related to the shared vision, and he spent some time telling us about the different groups that were involved. Those groups are active, certainly, field experiences. And again, we just have to be really mindful of what might or might not be available. Some examples of those. We have had fellows in the past that have attended events at Special Olympics. Similarly, there are advisory groups that offer input into the section of women's, children's, and family health at the Division of Public Health. For example, the program for children and youth with special health care needs. And attending an advisory meeting can be a really robust experience of seeing how many community partners come together to really offer input to a program that's serving the entire state. Anna, I'm sure you have seen Len Fellows attending either a training or a meeting that's been offered by Stone Soup Group. And last year, our experience was that many of those were happening via distance. You're nodding, is that right?
Yes, we are still not at this time having any population come into the office. And because I'm in Fairbanks, I've always been kind of virtual on the phone through text. So yeah, we did bump up our offerings. And so yeah, we have had a lot of Len Fellows come to either trainings or even before COVID in the office as field workers.
Okay, good to know. So Stone Soup Group is a great resource, and oftentimes I actually went to the website yesterday just to see how many virtual opportunities there may be, and there are certainly events listed. All right, another example is of attending a policy related event. If you recall back to Katie's sharing yesterday where when she was learning about policy, she attended the KEY campaign, which is something we'll be exploring in detail later. So field is out in the community, in the field. And how you choose these will come up a little bit later in my presentation. Here's some more organizations. I mentioned Special Olympics. I mentioned the section of Women's, Children's, and Family Health, Stone Soup Group. The Alaska Center for FASD has opportunities as well. And then of course, the Governor's Council on Disabilities and Special Education. There are several opportunities for trainings as well as meetings. Okay, yesterday Ken covered the family component so very thoroughly. But I did want to just take a minute to say that there's some really fun synergy that can happen during Lend, where we have had fellows have learned about opportunities from the families that they're working with in a host family situation. So my last bullet there talks about a parent support group opportunity that a fellow had learned about. And actually, the host family was participating in that. So there was an opportunity not only to see a community group like a parent support group, but also see how that influenced the family situation as well. There's lots of intersections in the clinical and field experiences. Okay, so then for those of you that are doing the longer term fellowships, a leadership project is a required component of that. And of that long-term fellowship, the leadership project is really an opportunity for you to explore, investigate, and really become an expert in an in-depth topic and apply leadership skills with a community-based setting. And the leadership project does include conducting a literature review. And we will, by the way, have not only multiple resources on Blackboard, but in addition, one of the consortium librarian offers a seminar for us as well. So we certainly would offer and have available multiple resources for that. And now I've got, here's my second part I wanted to say, and this is really how we come to know about the projects. If you remember Katie referring yesterday to how she identified her project, really the program sends out to our community partners that we have worked with in the past, and they've offered projects just to see what projects they might not only be interested in having accomplished, but is the timing right for the Lend year. So if you remember, Katie highlighted that her project was a multi-phase project. And her leadership project was one where she decided, in conjunction with Carmen at Help Me Grow, what would entail her project. But there's a phase 2 coming along. And she was really clear that she didn't do from beginning to end of this longer term multi-phase project, but took a section, a portion of it. Also, it may be that you have a really strong focus area, a really strong interest area, and you wish to develop your leadership project around that. An example of a fellow really being clear from the get-go, like day one, which is not the typical case, but I worked with a fellow that had a very big interest in data and data availability related to rare disorders. And she not only explored that through a literature review, but also developed really a recommendation for a plan to improve data statewide. So again, that's a possibility. You may have an idea on your own that you want to certainly grow and nurture. Another possibility is that Lend faculty may have ongoing projects where a fellow could participate, develop, expand a component of the project. I'm thinking, Karen, of a number of years ago where you were working on friendships and dating and implementing a project with adolescents that experienced autism, and leadership project was really not really being a part of that data collection. And I believe that was the focus, not necessarily running the group. Do I have that correct?
Right.
Right?
It was mostly conducting a pilot.
Right.
A pilot group, 2 groups, one with FASD and one with autism.
Thank you. Thank you. But that's a good example of where a Lend faculty member has an ongoing project and a fellow was able to include that or be a part of that as their leadership project. We, by the way, in seminar devote time to a more detailed discussion of the leadership project. And again, that's for those in a long-term fellowship. Okay, so family, didactics, clinical, and field. So with all of these opportunities, how do you decide? Where do you start? One of the first priorities, and all of you will be working carefully with your faculty member on this, and I would say it's job number 1 in this first month of Lend, is really to think about your Lend leadership plan and how it's tailored to you. And how liberating. You really get to think about developing your plan in conjunction with your faculty mentor. And what it really allows you is a hook to hang your activities and experiences on. Really tailor what kinds of activities you would choose to participate in, based on your interests. So the next few slides are really all about making the most of your Lend leadership plan with your experience. And please forgive me if you're fatigued with my repeating your leadership plan, but that's just what it is. I can only imagine, I would like you to feel the freedom and the liberation to really take what interests you most and work with your faculty mentor to craft it to best meet your needs. So here's some key questions. What is it? How do you construct it? What are some examples of leadership goals? Where do you begin? How do you use it to help? How do you frame your plan? And how do you know if your plan is being successful? So it's your plan. It also includes a scale for you to gauge your progress. If you need to push reset and think about some additional activities to supplement an opportunity that fell through or that you wanted to explore more. And it's really a compass to help you do that, so that I believe it's an opportunity to engage in reflective practice related to your LEND experience, and it will all be a part of your e-portfolio. And as I mentioned, Holly will be going over that today, and I think sharing some examples as well. Thank you for replying, Kelly. I really appreciate that from the question about the e-portfolio. Appreciate it. Okay, so here's a little scalable. In the middle, here's your LEND leadership plan, right in the beginning. It's kind of the hub of how you'll be spending your time. What does it entail? Seminars, and certainly the leadership workshops. We're participating in one of the 3 here today. Mentoring, can't emphasize that, that enough. A real opportunity to learn from talented people that are very well, have not only well-developed expertise, but networks in the community that can open opportunities. And what feeds into your plan? You determine clinical experiences that you're interested in. And certainly the venue may be a bit different this year than some of the traditional ones, but we will be nimble with that. Field experiences as well. Some of the meetings that I referenced, I neglected to suggest that a number of years ago, there was an opportunity for fellows in their local communities to attend meetings that were held locally. And certainly if not, they were done distance. But I believe many community organizations in the time of COVID were very welcoming for LEND fellows to be a part of those meetings. The family experiences is certainly a part of that, as well as the leadership project for the long-term fellows. Okay, so in terms of your LEND leadership plan, what it really is composed of is 2 or 3 personally selected and framed goals, starting with your, really, it just states your focus for your LEND. Karen already mentioned that we're really keen to everyone choosing or developing a goal based on their strength-based leadership characteristics. And I think it's fun. I'll show you an example of this, but it's really translating what we've been reviewing today and crafting a goal around that. And then to meet those goals, we'll ask you to develop 3 to 5 objectives that really define and give some direction to your plan, as well as what activities you'll participate in to reach your goal. Outcome measures. What are the indicators that you've achieved that objective that contribute to your goal? What kind of artifacts might you have available to show that? And that would be displayed in your e-portfolio. We'll talk a bit about that later, but here's an example. It may be that someone has an objective that they really want to approach their family visit. Maybe they're attending with their host family a clinician visit, and then following that, really thinking about how the family is navigating and responding to that experience, offer reflection on it. And there is a journaling capability in the e-portfolio. Possible focus areas, these are just examples, emphasis on examples. Maybe you want to look at service delivery systems in a geographic area, by a special population, or or by even a service provider specific, whether you were more interested in, say, infant learning as opposed to direct medical care or more in an educational setting. So it's really limitless. Additionally, another example is rural urban issues, looking at workforce, medical home models, cultural competence. We've already noted that the cultural competency piece is woven into everything we do in LEND. We indeed have had fellows that have put that as a goal for them for their LEND leadership plan. Interdisciplinary teaming, certainly through seminar, we'll be working with that and through your disciplines, actualizing that during seminar, but it also might be something that you want to explore a little bit in depth, and maybe even you're thinking about your leadership project, because the goals in the leadership project and the objectives really sort of all go together in the end. It may be specific diagnostic and screening opportunities, policy and advocacy, and research to practice. These are only examples, but the focus area is really something that is customized to you and your interests. So here's an example of one. These are goals. And I'm using this without any names, but with permission. So this fellow was interested in increasing knowledge about assessments and intervention for children with ASD or related developmental, mental and intellectual disorders. And then they were keen to develop their leadership expertise related to state and federal policy development. And then their last one, the final bullet, is an example of taking one of their leadership skills and incorporating it into their LEND goals. Here's another one. This example is goals. I should just back up just a minute. Here's the goals. Here's another part of it related to the objectives. This is really how they determined, again, in working with their mentor, how they would get from point A to point B to meet their goals. So they were going to participate in clinical and field experiences. They were going to look at, for example, disability policy. We mentioned AUCD yesterday. There are lots of opportunities, web-based opportunities to learn and participate in policy work groups, as well as the Governor's Council on Disabilities and Special Education has work groups. I think that I'll wait until I talk about a little bit. Well, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you now. I think it was 3 years ago, related to policy, 2 LEND fellows worked with the Governor's Council, the FASD work group, and developed white papers related to their work related to trauma, as well as public health education. And they developed white papers, and the council is now using those. Another objective was weekly reflection. There's no obligation for weekly, but looking at gifts and strengths of the children. This individual was actually someone who was doing an internship for their graduate program. And then they wanted to do a leadership project that was related to training staff at community placements and using an e-training model or distance delivered model. So this is a view of an e-portfolio. You'll see this in larger scale and in more in depth this afternoon, but this is really an example of where the goals are shown along with the objectives. So how do you frame your plan? First of all, your plan, I can't emphasize this enough, really is your interests and what you really have decided from kind of a self-assessment where you'd like to move forward. individualized, customized, tailored. You're probably fatigued already, but working with your mentor is just really very helpful. Setting goals and objectives, or at least it is for me, and I've heard it from others as well, is more theoretical, but your mentor can bring that to life for you as well in terms of landing on some objectives that you'd like to pursue. The other thing is you might want to do some background research, really to see if this is something that, if you think that it's one of your goals now, if you do some background work, it could help you put it into perspective of where it might take you in the future. And reflection. I also wanted to highlight here today, I mentioned that this is a really important activity as you embark on your LEND experience. And we do want you to work with your faculty mentor and post your goals and objectives by September 24th, which is 2 weeks from today. And I think that faculty, help me out. Have you worked with fellows that have adjusted their objectives along the way? I know I have. Someone was feeling like they learned, they had an experience and that really they didn't want to let that experience go, but they wanted to expand it. So they added an objective, that kind of thing. Can't emphasize that it's really a guide and a roadmap, and it helps you gauge where you are in reaching your goals. I think, how do you ensure a successful LEND year? I'm confident that you all will indeed have one. One is time management. I think you probably heard that from the panel yesterday. There's a lot to do, but really budgeting it out. And if you remember from the interview, I think we asked about this as well, that we really want to stay on top of it, from maximizing what we might be addressing in seminar and how that fits with your goals and objectives, making sure that the background work is up to date. Work with your mentor and track. And what I'm referring to there is just being really careful about recording your hours on your ePortfolio, so it doesn't come to be April and you're trying to recreate it. It's really important to keep that as up to date as you possibly can. So I don't know where I am right now in terms of time, but I am really happy to address any questions and any clarifications or more detail. That is really, it's not a 30,000-foot view, but it's certainly a higher level overview. Questions?
I have a question. So with these field experiences, let's say that, well, I guess my first question is, within a field experience, does that, will you guys be able to have a hub or a calendar online of all these things that are going to be happening? Or is that kind of our responsibility to find these things ourselves as they come throughout the year?
Well, how about, Meredith is kind of both. It used to be that, and on Blackboard, you will, I believe that there's on the left-hand menu, a link of possible experiences, but everything has changed to the point that we will look to your initiative as well. And I can tell you that we will help you identify what experiences. And often, if you look on Blackboard, there's already announcements that have been posted about upcoming opportunities. I think Vanessa posted those just yesterday. That is the pattern. When we learn about something, we'll post it so that you can take advantage of it. Now, you may know something like, for example, Meredith, you may know about the patient-centered medical home clinic, right? So if you knew that they were hosting a training, or if you knew there was an opportunity to do some shadowing, even via telehealth, that might be something you want to pursue.
And I think just as a message to my cohort, it might be even great if you see something that other people might be interested in doing, just kind of communicating that as well. I think working together is a lot easier than doing all this research ourselves, and because I know we all have really busy lives with everything else going on. So
Yeah, and you know what, Meredith, some of that just happens very naturally as well. It may be that someone just heard of something and it gets discussed at seminar as well as posted on Blackboard. So indeed, I would say that we kind of share collectively responsibility for that.
And I would also add that while you're developing your leadership plan with your faculty member, or at least it's how I do it, I often come up with suggestions for activities or places to go to meet some of those, goals.
And right from the get-go, when that plan's being developed, exactly.
that's great. I have another question. Sorry.
Nothing to be sorry about.
So if I wanted to learn more and learn some more research about something that I'm interested in to learn to achieve my goal, and there happens to be another webinar or even like another class or something, but it costs money to do that, how do you guys approach something like that?
It really depends. And that's a terrible answer, but it really depends. We don't know. Typically what we have built into our budget was for people to travel into Anchorage to do the face-to-face, and sometimes we have money to attend an AUCD conference or the disability policy seminar. But with COVID, most of that stuff is going to be virtual. So we for sure we will be encouraging people to engage in conferences related to the AUC network and the policy seminar. And of course, our travel money will go a whole lot further when we only have to pay a $300 registration fee versus a $2,500 travel deal. So I guess the short answer is ask.
Ask. Mm-hmm. Inquire, Meredith. Indeed.
Oh, and one more thing, I also know that if it's something that the Center for Human Development is sponsoring, and to everybody else it costs money, our fellows don't have to pay. Ken's putting the training cooperative, right?
Could you repeat that again? What was that we don't have to pay for?
If there is a training that the Center for Human Development under the Alaska Training Cooperative is offering, we can have the fee waived. I don't want to say that that is 100% because sometimes we advertise things for other people. And so when we're advertising something for other people, it's really not our call as to whether we can waive those fees. But for example, and I was going to look, I just got the notification, there is the Aging and Disability Summit that's coming up. But I think we just advertise it. I don't think it's our sponsorship. So I wanted to look into the fee structure. I didn't get that far yesterday. And if there's a possibility of having that waived. I guess because what we can't do is just pay for every conference that you want to go to. That's not going to happen. And that's the other, the other issue is you're getting a stipend. So, that's something you might want to use your stipend to do if it's that meaningful.
And if it's something that our community partners, I'm thinking of the the Autism Resource Center, when they had a national speaker come in, Len Fellows were invited to attend that. Karen, I don't remember the fee structure, but it was certainly very minimal. And so the community partners are always on. I get frequent calls about this opportunity is coming up. And what happens is that gets posted on Blackboard and announced in seminar.
Yeah, so I think that also raises an important issue. Stay on top of those announcements on Blackboard, because all these opportunities are very fluid. Oftentimes we don't get a lot of advance notice. I can't tell you how many webinars and meetings I get an email about and the things happening in 2 days. So we will all be posting those opportunities as they come up. So stay on top of that. And I don't know, I don't use Blackboard enough, and I don't teach with it. When an announcement is put on, isn't there an automatic email that goes out to people or not?
So there's an announcement that it's been placed. The content of the announcement is an option indeed.
It isn't automatically emailed, but when you post something in announcements, one of the options before you click submit is to send an email concurrently.
And so that really is.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that really is a question of the group. If people push send email, you're going to get lots of emails versus just making it a habit of going into Blackboard, a couple of times a week. That's it.
The stylistic approach, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering those questions.
Oh goodness, who else has questions?
A quick question. I was wondering, are we able to make any changes to our plan as the year goes on? If, during our experience, if something hits us and we think, oh, this is a new goal I'd like to learn or something new I'd like to do, can we add that to our plan or make any adjustments?
Well, I'm happy to address that, Shannon. First, work with your faculty mentor. But I think in one of those slides I mentioned, it's a bit of a compass. And that indeed, if you come across something that's new to you and you really want to incorporate it, that has been done in the past. Yes, it's kind of, I would want to say that what a great idea that something prompted your interest to the point that you wanted to develop a goal or perhaps an objective around it.
Thank you.
Sure. Is Mary Dallas here?
Yes. Yes.
Do you have any comment on that, Mary Dallas?
No, I don't really have too much to add to the conversation.
Okay.
Jenny, it's Ken. My experience on those things is that the goals tend to stay fairly consistent, but there may be more changes in objectives and particularly in activities.
Right. I couldn't agree more. But that open dialogue, when the descriptor was used compass, just to see where you're going, press reset. There are opportunities that may come up that we had no idea about. It's a living document. How about that? But Ken, I appreciate the delineation. Goals pretty much stay the same, but the objectives can be certainly added to. Other questions?
I guess the one thing that I would add, Jenny, is that when you're trying to think about your goals and objectives, sometimes people get a little stuck or have a hard time coming up with something. And what I encourage folks to do is maybe go back to thinking about why you joined Lind in the first place, and really think about what were your goals then? What were you wanting to learn? What strengths did you come in with? And what were maybe some things you were hoping to improve on? And that can help you get unstuck.
Thank you, Mary Dallas. Excellent point. Other questions?
This isn't a question so much, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny, but I just wanted to emphasize that there is a tool available that we'll go through later with the ePortfolio with kind of the template for writing out the goals, objectives, and activities. I know myself, sometimes I just need to see, you showed a great example in the PowerPoint, but fellows will actually have a template to work from, so it's not starting from scratch per se. And that style is really supportive of my writing style.
Well, and we're all just getting started with this as well. So yes, and it's my understanding that Holly is actually going to be sharing some examples today as well. So thanks for that, Anna. Other questions? Well, if you don't have any now, that's perfectly fine. But if you do have some or think of something, don't hesitate. Reach out. We will do our best to be back in touch with you. And you certainly, I really encourage you to work with your faculty mentor, but I am available to you all as well.
Anna had a question in the chat.
Oh, and you know my vision, right?
Yep, and so I was just going to read it out.
Oh, thank you, Vanessa.
Yep, Anna Z had asked, are there any suggestions for refining your goals and objectives when you're interested in learning everything?
Well, that's the problem with Lend, Anna. You have crystallized the problem. And actually, I want to do everything as well, but you work with your mentor on that one, because I think that leadership also includes really setting some priorities, short-term and long-term. So you have fun with that. Love the energy. Thank you for your help, Vanessa. Did I miss others? Okay.
No, you haven't. The only other thing I was hoping to add, when we created the schedule for Lend, we were thinking about those of you who are also doing the leadership project, the long-term fellows that are doing the leadership project. And I know there's a fair amount of anxiety about some of these deliverables and deadlines. And so next week on Friday, Jenny Miller will again be sharing very specifically about the leadership project for those that are participating in that activity. And then the following week, as Jenny had mentioned, we have a research librarian who will be coming in and speaking very specifically about the literature review, which is a component, a deliverable for those that are completing the leadership project. And so the long-term fellows. And the idea there was that we were front loading those talks in this semester, so that way people could have that didactic support, hear the lectures, be able to reference those materials and get going in those ways before the deadline of the end of the semester for the literature review. So you have that support early on in the seminar. For those that aren't participating in that portion of the Lend program, it's still excellent information, right? And so I really encourage everybody to, have their listening ears on during those sessions because we're going to be learning from one another in this interdisciplinary focused program. And I just wanted you guys to know that your faculty have been thoughtful about how they've organized these sessions, particularly with some of these required products and deadlines in mind.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, we kind of work to chunk it up. And I appreciate the discussion of the leadership project straight away because it just helps everyone kind of get their juices flowing as well. So, and I know that I have heard from community partners just recently. So, well, we are at my time device says 11:51. I think that means we can break for lunch and return in an hour. Am I remembering that, Lend team?
That's correct.
Okay. Enjoy your lunch. Hope you're able to get some refreshment and see you back here.
So just to confirm, 12:50. Okay, thank you.
Oh, of course.
Jenny, can I just tell you that I love your earrings? Are those Poppy Peak?
So Anna, I was just putting a message in the chat for you. For all you're dealing with today, you'll look like $1,000,000, kiddo.
Oh, you are Jenny
Oh,
Miller. You
and
are
do you
too
know how
kind.
many times I have been there? Talk about adaptability. Oh my. How are they doing?
I haven't gotten a message back yet with results, so we're just gonna pray and hope
Okay.
and pray, but
I've been
thank you.
thinking of you. Yes, you know what? So you remember I have twin daughters. They're now
Yes.
in their mid-20s. Oh my gosh. Don't know how that happened. But
Flies.
they kind of dressed me up. So yes, they're Poppy Peak.
I love them. They're beautiful.
Well, thank you. You know who likes them? This is interesting. Carrie Moore likes these. Always comments on my Poppy Peak.
Well, Carrie Moore has great taste, so
Well, and look at you in the earrings. I think that's one of the things about working from home. I don't have to worry
wear
about-
earrings. Meredith knows. Normally we don't get to wear jewelry. I've made the mistake one or two
Exactly.
times, and now it's nothing.
Well, you know, I just don't have time to really survey the parking lots that I've been through with, you know, these earrings falling off. So yeah, it's handy at home.
Oh, well, you look lovely in them.
Well, you take good care of yourself, kiddo.
Thanks. Yeah, I might pop in and out with the camera. I'll be here the whole time, but I will have some companions likely this afternoon. So
we'll welcome that.
Thanks. See you guys in a bit.